G'day punters, welcome to the deep dive powered by puntingform.com.au sectional data where we're going to deep dive into how fast and how slow each of the horses ran, the interesting horses, also powered by betfair.com.au. We're going to look at some of the betting. There's a lot of betting done at both Caulfield and Randwick. We're going to touch on the good races at both. Pete, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's 3 days into a long weekend worth of betting. It's very enjoyable.
Yeah, we're about to get stuck into Sandown, so we're going to make this quick, and we're going to start yet again with the holy book, the Stewards Report. What a farce it is. It becomes a bigger joke each and every week. Now, whilst we are extremely grateful, very grateful that racing continues, don't take us wrong, we still would like the rules enforced and like to be betting because we want to bet and needs to be like umpired. Now, if a horse has blinkers on, does that affect your wagering, Peter?
Blinkers off or blinkers on is a reasonably important gear change, you'd say. It's a sign.
Reasonably, you reckon?
Which race are you referring to over the?
You look at race 9 at Caulfield, the Betfair Price Boost Handicap over 600 metres. There was a horse there that I was a little bit interested in, single-handed. Now, single-handed, punters and dribblers, was getting was first up of three okay trials without blinkers on. D. Bates rode it last prep. Dwayne Dunn never ridden it. He was booked to ride, and the blinkers are going on after 3 trials. That sparked my interest. Now, given the horse, last preparation sat 4th of 12, 3 of 12, 2nd of 7th, 5th of 12, 6th of 12, 3 of 8, 5 of 13, 5 of 14. Blinkers on, no worse than top 4 in run, I'd suggest. Is that fair to assume?
It's fair to say they would show some level of intent.
Well, on Saturday, with the very late gear change announced by the stewards on Twitter, it missed the start without the blinkers and settled 10 of 12 and didn't challenge.
So just to clarify, the notification went out on Twitter, late gear change, 11th of the 4th, 2020, Caulfield Race 9, single-handed, not wearing blinkers, went out at 5:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The race began at 5:25.
Yeah, and the blinkers weren't on the start prior. So there's only a gear change because it's a joke because they have not done what they said they were going to do. It's a rule. The horse shouldn't have run, in my opinion. What do you think?
I'm staggered it took that long. It basically, so 5:25 as a jump time and the message goes out at 5:20. To me, that basically says that the horse has been parading in the mounting yard and someone's twigged.
Yeah, and they're going, shit, that thing's supposed to have blinkers on.
It's not wearing blinkers. Oh, it's too late.
Oh, we left him in Bendigo.
Borderline insane. I mean, what can you say? Because if you're a punter and that's affected your decision to punt in the first place, you're not entitled to, a
refund.
If it was scratched, every other runner would get deductions. Well, there's no way that you can withdraw your bet at that stage. You're basically at the mercy there, and you can't turn around and say, actually, I don't want this bet. Exactly.
It's just utterly incompetent, wrong, and highlights the farce that is fast becoming the Stewards Report. I'd love everyone to get in touch on Twitter, though, and tell me if you think I'm wrong. This horse should have been scratched and should not have run without blinkers. It was way too late to do the gear change. And then we also can keep talking about race at 9 and the stewards. We'll just get our weekly sort of stewards back out of the way. Fidelia. What an animal. What an animal, Peter.
A beast.
Oh, Fidelia. So let's look back at some of Fidelia's best work. Settled in the first up, this prep settled second last. Second up, settled second last. Third up, settled third last. Fourth up, settled second last. And on Saturday, we rolled right forward. No change of tactics. Real good amount of intent. The market didn't know it was going to be ridden with intent. So I'm not suggesting anything sus happened at all. I'm just suggesting that this rule is a complete and utter farce. It's a fucking joke. And then it's not enforced. Just remove the rule and stop growing us all up. And also, the stewards clearly can't keep up with the workload with this blinkers fiasco. So take this off their plate.
Yeah, I completely
There's
agree.
clearly too much money put into prize money and other things, and the integrity of the sport's getting left at the wayside. This rule's stupid, but it's there. So if it's there, you got to enforce it. You can't randomly enforce it like they did to Kieran Maher and Bonds away in the Oakley Plate.
Yeah. I mean,
Speed maps, especially sorry, Pete, especially at a track like Caulfield, where it's just a fucking highway most of the time now, they're crucial.
Yeah, completely.
We didn't, but I feel for the punters at back Mascalino because it hemorrhaged. You could have been on big overs because it's going to get a soft lead. No, it's not. Up rolls for Delia. Play on. The Stewards report is just 2 paragraphs of absolute fucking white noise. But again, let's clarify. We are very grateful for that racing continues. Thank you so much for letting us keep betting, and also for keeping all yourselves in jobs too. I really appreciate it. Let's talk about what happened there at Caulfield, Peter, to more of a betting in the future point of view now that we've got that out of the way. Let's start with race 2 at Caulfield, where Mark Zahra gave Prophet's Thumb less than none, I thought. Jumped okay. Could have followed the horse that ended up leading, but elected to sort of sneak and go back towards the fence and ended up last in run. Second race at Caulfield, which has been the first race, the first 3 horses out with the first 3 horses home. Given that and the way that Caulfield's raced recently, you would anticipate that a jockey of Mark's intelligence and ability and just overall history of success would think possibly last the fence isn't going to be the most productive place to place my animal here. And yet again, the goat just he was as they went too slow early. What did the goat do? Just peeled around them, put himself into the race. They walked early here, walked early. You can explain the tempo if you want, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've gone very slow for the class here. The leader has travelled at 3.2 lengths slow to the 600, but the majority of horses are going a lot more slower than that.
And Ollie's just rolled around thinking, being able to count to 10 in his head, rolled around, and Mark with an animal that's got 61 kilos, I think, set it a big task. I thought it was a pretty big effort to even run second.
Yeah, it was just bolting for a run, wasn't it? And really wasn't clear until very, very late in the piece. Look, from a betting point of view, there wasn't any great amount of money for it late. It started to drift out, and towards the end, the market suggested that it wasn't going to be ridden with too much intent. It also thought that perhaps Acting might have been ridden with a bit more intent, because that horse again sustained a numerous amounts of wagering on it towards the end of betting, but that horse has been disappointing once more.
And obviously I back Prophet's Thumb. I'm talking through my kick, and that's how I always talk. This is like, we don't hide from that. This program is done by people who bet and invest regularly, and it does affect the way I view racing, but not overly, because we've been betting and investing for enough time now for it to prove if we got some ability. We've got enough. The ride was fucking awful. Yep. I thought Anjana's ride by Ben Allen wasn't great. Sort of missed the boat, and the horse really picked up nicely to the line. I think Anjana, although it's a bit of a sort of nonny, I think, sort of a bit of a tease. It did a lot of teasing here again, and it's probably going to go really well next start. Mystery Love was good, but they've walked here. It's really hard to line them up. Don't know what to do with Prophet's Thumb next start. I'd love to see someone else ride it. Race 3, just while we're going to finish off on Mark. They've gone pretty slow here again. They've gone 1 length slow early. The first 2 out with the first 2 home. And again, so in the second race, the last 2 out with the first 2 home. The first race, the first 3 out with the first 3 home. I thought Indictment was good in the first race too, if you can follow it. But race 3, the first 2 out, first 2 home, walked early. I was very, very confused by what Mark decided to do here on a horse I backed, Hangton Station. I always say it wrong and get told off. He was very keen to sort of snick and keep that sort of 1-1 position, despite how slow they were going. The horse raced ungenerously because it was being slowed for the majority of the sort of straight to the bend. Then there's a bit of a boat race. Holmes ended up running 4th. Do you think there's much we can glean from this race, Peter, as a betting proposition going forward? Even horses like Zeus Sonic, who was very firm, just wasn't able to run on, but nothing sort of did.
Yeah,
Hairborn's gone. Hairborn needs a spell big time.
yeah. I wouldn't be taking too much out of what happened from a sectional breakdown point of view. I mean, they've gone 6.5 lengths. That's the leader, 6.5 lengths slow for the class to the 600. And to be honest, none of the splits late going home were particularly impressive from my perspective against the race and against the adjusted figures. So really for me, it's just a nothing race. And there was a couple of them there at Caulfield over the weekend. And as you said, when they just all lined up and how they lined up is how they finished. Not really taking anything out of it.
Outside of that at Caulfield, I thought we should mention race number 7, Inverloch. Inverloch has gone 17.5 lengths above the all-average benchmark to the 600 and come home 2.9 slow, overall figure of 14.6. That's a group figure.
Yep.
This horse is a legitimate now beast. I don't know what they'll do with it, but with its racing pattern, it's competitive in almost anything.
Yep. You'll find one of the cheeky group races later in the spring, won't it, where it can just get to the front and try and dictate all these sort of stayers that are just used to going low.
100%. I thought Order of Command returned really well, returned a really big figure first up. Really graved myself up over this. It didn't have any jump out, so I was trying to avoid it. And I did, and I shouldn't have. It started $9.50. Like, you've just got to be better than that, Jackson. It's returned an almost career peak figure. It's run an 11 figure 3 times in its life, and that was the next best after that was a 9.7. It's run a 10.2 here. So this horse is flying. Note to punters out there, it can return a bit of a flat figure second up. Anything else out of Caulfield, Peter?
No.
I thought a couple of horses worth following from Caulfield were Tarn's Pride in the staying race. Though they walked, it was a real slug home. I think Vacillator and Vinland are 2 others that you can get something out of. Let's head to Royal Randwick, Sneaky Pete.
Yeah, look, Randwick was it was a card, as I alluded to last week when we were doing some of the previews. I thought a few of the features were a little bit ho-hum, and in the end, they probably eventuated that way. Obviously, Colette was a standout visual performance, but it's off a very slowly run race again. So for the most part, the races were slowly run. There was only
great ride by Boss. Jesus,
Boss just dominated in the early parts of those Group 1 features there. But there was only one.
You hated the meeting, but to be fair, you put on a clinic previewing it.
Yeah. I mean, I was a little bit disappointed that I fell into Cosmic Force once more, and I think the horse is just in the bin. But having said that, the stable.
Someone tried to sort of put a bit of water on that on Saturday morning, didn't he?
Thanks for that, Jack. But no.
But that's something that's quite interesting though for people who. Pete and I work extremely closely together, right? He loved Cosmic Force. When I dug a little bit into it, I didn't. And I actually found the winner and another horse, but because Pete loved Cosmic Force so much, I let the race go. So it's just a mutual grey up.
And meanwhile, I've chopped out on Splintex in the run because I thought, well, this thing's in a perfect spot. It's just going to be like just sitting here and find it. And in the end, I broke even on a race which I was entitled to get absolutely caned by.
But found Contam Piataro. How do we say that?
Conte Bardello. So
what a beast. What a training performance by Gay.
Yeah, that horse has been absolutely flying, and it really was. It just seemed to get into a perfect spot, and it was just a perfect ride from Tim Clark. I found it and Amangiri in the race, just thinking that on pace would be suited. And for the most part during the day, you didn't necessarily want to be too far back. It was only through the cracks that managed to really come on from back in the field. But most of the other races were won from horses settling midfield for the most part.
Yeah, if you look at the puntingform.com.au meeting breakdown, you can see the majority of the winners, like say the last 800, 5th in lane 1, 4th lane 2, 2nd lane 2, 5th lane 2, 5th lane 4, 3rd lane 1, 4th lane 3, and 1st lane 5. I thought you were very stiff. Pete gave a pretty big push for Bangkok in race 10. It's clocked the fastest last 200 metres of the day. It's flown home. Fast last everything of the day. Pretty shitty way to finish. I think you found the right horse at a huge price.
Yeah, and look, I could have backed it each way, but in the end, I'm not an each way punter for the most part. I've backed it. And
is that my fault?
No, No, it's not. It's my fault. So I've backed it and Savatiano, and I anticipated Savatiano to be ridden with a little bit more intent, but in the end, it was White Moss just sort of sitting out wide, Nash jumping on board, which is a late jockey change, or it was happened on the day, but he just put the horse so it was comfortable and completely brained them in the end.
What do you want to do with Funstar?
I didn't like Funstar going into the race.
Good lay by you, but I mean, moving forward now, you nailed it on Saturday.
Yeah,
It's obviously a horse with good ability and a strong SP profile.
Yeah, exactly. So you can go back to following it next prep, but I thought that was a little bit of an afterthought. And yeah, we managed to bet around it with the right horses, strength and positioning.
What about the Spruker Master of Wine? Thoughts? It's closed nicely.
Yeah.
I think it sort of strengthened its claims a little bit. Despite running fourth, the 46th fastest last 600, 31st fastest last 400, and the 29th fastest last 200. It's gently increased those sectionals as it's hit the line off a decent early tempo.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. If you were following Master of Wine going in towards the spring and some of the handicap features, would you rather it or Colette?
Colette.
Oh, okay. I would have followed Master of Wine. I think the horse has got some more improvement, some more scope to come. It's got big figures behind it now. I think he'll be able to find some races in the spring and really do some damage. But again, that's 6 months away. We may not even be here. You know, I might be down in Albany doing clinics on a weekly basis.
Was that where you put in the clinic on Friday? Good Friday?
No, that was
Ascot.
Albany was yesterday.
Pete gave out a bonus set for the punters, for the mailbag punters on Friday, and it was so fat. But unfortunately, personally, the thousands I won on Friday, I gave back all of it and just a little bit more on Saturday, mainly at Caulfield.
Fuck. It's just the roller coaster of life. Look, to be honest, there's not much else to take out of this meeting. I guess the most interesting betting race was the Queen Elizabeth, but really, I'm not convinced anyone knew what was going on anyway. There was good support for Danon Premium late after it sort of drifted out. It wasn't really wanted earlier in the day. Addeybb was solid late, and obviously it was dominant in victory. But Tiakau Shark was well backed. Melody Bell was pretty heavily supported before drifting right out in the last probably minute or two. I'm not really, again, taking anything out of this race. Are we going to see Addeybb? Are we going to see Danon Premium ever again in Australia? I thought Tiakau Shark, obviously had that setback, hoof bruise, had synthetic hoof filler put in. It's got a good SP in this race. I'll forgive it and follow it again when it comes back later in the spring, which I'm certain the Tiakau machine will bring a few more of their champs back because they've done really well this spring, this autumn.
Yep. Cool. All right. Anything else?
Nah, it's a pretty plain weekend, to be honest, considering how good it looked on paper a couple of weeks ago. I thought the entire weekend was a bit disappointing.
I concur.
And I'm a better. I'm not a narrative. I couldn't give a shit about the story behind the betting, outside of the betting, if that makes sense.
Well, you'll never make it. Yes. No wonder you left Sky.